Thank you, Jim. Ellen, I couldn't see over there, so I'll take that personally.
Not as much as your looks.
Okay, Robin has our invocation.
Thank you. Let us pray. Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today with so much joy in our hearts for the wonderful blessings that you've given us. Among those are that we are Rotarians and we serve not just our community but our state and our nation as well. And for that we're very grateful. Please help us to continue in this service and to serve mankind. Please be with those today who have prepared this food and bless it as we partake it. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Okay, if you'll check your cell phones, and we're going to do the four-way test. You can stand or sit or whatever you feel like doing. Everybody's always in transition one way or the other. As long as you use the four-way test, I don't care whether you're sitting down or not. Okay, you ready? In all the things you say and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. We're going to make a resolution that be emblazoned at City Council headquarters for them to do. Okay, last week we met at Agape downtown. I hope many of you were able to be there. But we did not have our cart buckets there, and so we said this week we would get double. So I'm going to talk for a minute and do it myself, and hopefully some other of you will start reaching for your wallets or your pocketbooks. Okay? If I milk that enough yet? So before the meeting's over, please contribute. Okay, so Beth, Art, visiting Rotarians and guests.
Good afternoon, happy Monday. Just as of a few minutes ago, we did not have any visiting Rotarians. Have any visiting Rotarians come in the last 30, 45 seconds? Raise your hand. Okay, great. Just didn't want to leave anybody out. For those of you that brought guests with you, if you'll please stand, have a microphone, and then we'll allow you to introduce your guest. I know we have guests. Bob has a guest.
But I'm supposed to bring one? I mean, just like I have to be Steve Mungo of the Mungo Company, a friend, client for a long time, and he's responsible
For today's program.
Are there any other guests here today? Okay, if not, thank you. Have a great week.
Okay, Wayne Cannon has Health and Happiness. Wayne?
Well, everybody's healthy and happy, and that's great. Spring is here. Everybody's glad spring is here. Raise your hand. Hey, all right. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of this cold weather. But at least we don't live in Yankeeland where we got all the snow. We got some information that's pertinent to share with the group. John and Anita Folsom have the record for the longest married couple in South Carolina. This is to be known. This was dated January 10th, 2014, and they've been married 73 years. I think that deserves. Okay, Walt Carlton's younger brother just returned from Afghanistan. He is returning after his second tour over there. He's a Marine. And we're definitely fortunate to have great people in this country that are willing to sacrifice for us. That's good. I think that's Steve Ham has recovered from his stroke, and he's here, and we're glad to have Steve back. Libby Gerber is recuperating from knee surgery, and she sends all of her love and hopes to be back soon. And let's see, I have an announcement. I guess somebody left us on the desk out there, and I assumed they wanted me, and I guess it was Catherine Kennedy, since her name is number 1 on the list. But she said they're having a Will University. Anybody wants to learn about preparing, but Will is going to be April the 1st, Tuesday at 5:30 to 7 o'clock at the Palmetto Club. They're going to have a burger, so you get free food. Praise the Lord. Hello, God. I thought I cut it off. That thing never rings. Yeah. And during the day, anyway. Except when you don't want it to. All right, let's see. Roger Colson with Salvation Army lost his father-in-law this past week with cancer, and I'd like to make sure that everybody keeps his name in your prayers. Let's see, Michael Kahn, if you want to see. Michael, stand up and let him look at you. Y'all better cover up your eyes. He has shaved his head to raise money for cancer. He's raised over $1,000, and he'd take any other donations. Michael. Okay. I want to share a story with you, a human interest story about a man named George. This situation takes place in Missouri right after the Civil War. And we have raiders that were going through Missouri at that time with the sheets and the pillowcases and stuff over their heads, and they had attacked a farm there. It was owned by Moses and Susan, and Moses and Susan, it was devastated, and they dragged off Susan's best friend Mary with her kid named George. And so since Susan was Mary's best friend, she negotiated with the Cantrell Raiders to get George back. And so they traded their only horse that they had left and met with the Raiders, and they traded the horse, and they threw a burlap bag down. And he picked up the bag and opened it up, and the freezing, young, almost dead boy was in the bag, and he put him next to his chest, and he carried him back home, carried him all the way home. He was going to take care of him. He was going to make sure that he got educated, and he was going to make sure that he had a nice, full life. And so George became an adult, and that George that lived and became George Washington Carver, who we all know founded 257 ways to use the peanut, and what you don't know is that he did 88 ways to use the sweet potato. And so that's the rest of the story. Which another aspect of the story is that he went to Iowa State University, and when he was at Iowa State University, Henry A. Wallace had the opportunity to work with him. Now, next time I have Health and Happiness, I'll tell you about Henry A. Wallace. I've got one other thing. I was in a hurry and left. I left my Rotarian sitting on my desk. I was going to bring it, but the question I was going to ask is, anybody know who was on the front of last month's Rotarian?
Howard Buffett.
Huh?
Howard Buffett.
Not last month. Anybody know last month?
Howard Buffett.
No. February. It was a basketball player. Huh? Abdul-Jabbar. Now, that's correct. What was his number? Huh?
33.
66. Y'all missed it. You don't get to rent the book. Now I get to keep the book another month. All right. Everybody have a great week.
Okay, a couple of things. I wanted to let you know that last week I went over to the university and spoke with a group of international students, something called the Global Leadership Forum. And it's something that we, John Bakes and I, earlier in this year, talked about going over to USC and starting a Rotary Club. Well, I soon found out that there is a Rotary Club, which is sponsored by the Spring Valley Club, and the faculty advisor is with 5 Points Club. And so we are joining a little bit more with them to work with them. These international students, a lot of them are graduate students that will be heading back to China and other places. And so anybody that has an interest in interacting with internationals on campus in relation to the Rotary Club over there, an interesting thing I found out is that if you are over 30, you've aged out of Rotaract. Rotaract is our kind of university junior club, and the dues are less and that sort of thing. But if you age out at 30, and they get a lot of grad students over 30, so we're going to try to recruit some of those people to at least be e-members of our club and that sort of thing. So if you have any interest in USC students at all, in Rotary, just come see me afterwards, or just send me an email and say I'm interested. It's not anything that's going to move along really quickly, but we want to make sure we're involved with our university as much as we can. The golf tournament is coming up. John, if you're okay, I'll just mention the golf tournament. John Denise is helping us on the board to head it up. Carl Byers and John Bacus are obviously very involved in it as well. Any of you folks, Mason, maybe you as well, could meet after this meeting and just kind of put our heads together and be ready. Any of you other guys out there, if you'll be thinking about potential sponsors that you might know out in the community, every potential sponsor of the tournament is also a potential member of this club. We're still trying to create an opportunity for more folks to come on and get exposed to us, so please think about that. We will have an update. We've been on our last club off-campus visit last week to Agape, and John Johnston and I and Mark Sullivan will probably loop him in since he's drunk the Kool-Aid now. He's going to be a Rotary president. We're going to make him start getting involved in these decisions. But we're going to come back to you and talk about what we're going to try to do probably next week or so. John will have some information, so look for that. So unless there's anything else that anybody has and they scream out to me, I am going to let Jack Sloan come and introduce our speaker today.
Today I got the opportunity to introduce to you Colonel Michael Manning. And before I start, I do want to stop and just take 1 minute to say something that I don't say enough. Thank you for your service, Colonel Manning. Colonel Michael Manning, he's the commander of the 169th Fighter Wing, South Carolina Air National Guard, McIntyre Joint National Guard Base in Easto. The Wing's mission is to provide, project, and sustain combat-ready air forces, in foreign countries, I would have to say. He is the senior officer responsible for organizing, training, and equipping the largest operational F-16 wing in the Air National Guard. He is responsible for the care, morale, and welfare of 1,300 Air National Guard personnel and 90 active duty. Colonel Manning was born in Springfield, Massachusetts, and received his bachelor's in 1984 from the U.S. Air Force Academy. He's had assignments in Korea, Germany. He is also a Delta Airlines first officer, rated for 757s, 767s, and 777s. And the final thing, Colonel Manning is a command pilot with 4,600 hours. And Colonel, the thing our club is very anxious for you to address today is exactly, where is Malaysian Flight 370? You, Colonel Manning.
If I knew, I'd have to kill you. No, obviously the aliens took it. I mean, that's probably where it is, or went into a black hole, I think. But before I get started, I would like to take a moment to recognize one of our American heroes, Colonel Jack Van Loan. On behalf of the over 2,500 folks out at McIntyre, thank you for your service and your sacrifice. Also, like to, Steve Mungo's been recognized, you guys may not know this, but he is the honorary wing commander out at McIntyre. So he's my civilian counterpart. We have a program out there where, well, we try to integrate with the community and Bill Dukes was the first honorary wing commander a few years ago, and Steve took over last summer. We got him up in the air in an F-16 before sequestration shut us down, so you can ask him about that. Steve is also leading an effort for our family day that we're going to have on 3 May, which I'll talk about here a little bit more towards the end. So, next slide, please. Where is McIntyre? Most of y'all probably know, but sometimes a map helps. So we're halfway between Shaw Air Force Base and here, right south of Fort Jackson. So if you go by there on 378 on the right-hand side towards Sumter, you'll see an F-16 out there on a stick. That's McIntyre. We're kind of hidden back in the swamp back there. Next slide. So McIntyre is, we've got about 2,500 folks out there. I'm also the base commander, so we're one of the only joint National Guard bases. So there's basically 75 combat aircraft out there. 45 of them are Army helicopters. And basically, I'll kind of hit the Army side of the house here up front before I get into the Air Guard part. There are, of the 45 combat aircraft out there, there's A-64 Apaches that just got back from Kuwait for a year over there. They're kind of in the Army known as the tactical experts of Army aviation. They've got Black Hawks out there. I don't have my laser pointer here, but you can see the Black Hawk picture down there next to the Lakota down there. They just got back from a year in Kosovo. The CH-47 Chinooks, the big ones with the double rotors there, they got back from a year in Afghanistan back in 2012. And the Lakotas, the little ones on the bottom right there, they just got back from the southwest border doing night patrols with the Homeland Security folks. And then they also do all the maintenance for all the heavy tanks and personnel carriers for the state of South Carolina out there. So McIntyre itself has a lot of capability out there. What I'm going to talk more about as the talk goes on here is the left side of the picture there, the F-16s. We have 28 of the latest and greatest F-16s in the Air Force out there. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of our other units that are out there. So we have, like Jack said, we have 1,300 guardsmen out there and about 90 or so active duty folks. And I'll explain how those all integrate in. Next slide, please. We're set up just like kind of like a lot of your companies. Probably we have 4 major groups out here. We have our maintenance in the middle there is about 45% of our folks out there. So they're the core of keeping our mission going. We have an operations group, and then we have a support group, and we have a really small medical contingent out there. So they're all led by 06s like myself, and then integrated in the blue squares in the bottom is kind of where our active duty folks are laid in, mostly in maintenance and operations. As far as the active duty folks go, we were the first back in 08 to what's called a TFI, Total Force Integration, where the active duty sent us about 100 of their folks back then, and they're basically under my command. And the reason I want to bring that up is we've been doing it for about 5 years or so. If you've been reading the internet, kind of the DoD is out of money, so they're looking for cost-effective ways to operate. And one of the ways they're going to do that is to basically make all Air Force units TFI units. So we've been doing it since 08, and we're really proud of that, of how that's working together. We take a lot of young maintenance folks and young pilots and let them fly with a bunch of old guys like me and a bunch of our old maintenance folks, and it works out really well. The other thing is, of the 1,300 or so folks that are out there, only a third of them are full-time. So 65% of them, they only come out basically about 39 days a year, which is about 1/3 the cost of a full-time person. So to a taxpayer, that's pretty cost effective. If you could have an employee that was fully qualified, ready to go to war, and you could send him home for most of the year and only take him when you needed him, that would be a pretty cost effective force structure. So the Air National Guard offers that to our country, and I think the Air Force is realizing that, going to expand that capability. Next slide. The economic impact, it's kind of standard. We pay a bunch of people out here, but it's about $60 million throughout the state. You can see kind of where it's laid in there. That's for the Air Guard. Next slide. And if you look for the entire National Guard, we have about 10,500 folks in the South Carolina National Guard. I'm in charge of the Air National Guard part of that, not the Army part. So the Air Guard part's about 1,500 folks. The Army Guard is about 9,000. You can see it's about $500 million worth of impact to the state. Next slide. And then some more details on the Air Guard part of the impact. Next slide. Okay, so what's the mission of the F-16? Like Jack kind of hinted there, we're a fourth-generation fighter designed to go in, self-protect ourselves against the enemy, and do all the mission sets from the first day of the war to the last day of the war. So our main mission is suppression of enemy air defenses, where we go in and find the guys that are using radars to shoot our friends down, like our P-52 pilots and our other folks, and then we go and shoot back at them or drop bombs on them. So it's kind of a pretty intense fight right in the beginning, the first few days of the war. If Syria were to kick off, our folks are over there right now. They would be right in the beginning days of the Syria, taking down the Syrian integrated air and missile defense IATs out there, which is they got some pretty good stuff, SA-15s and whatnot out there. So we would be right there amongst them and trying to shoot those guys down. The other mission sets we do, we drop bombs. We also protect bases, defensive counter-air, and then we do a lot of what's called close air support, where once we kind of own the skies, which is the main mission of the Air Force, we end up working now with the Army, which is what we've done over in Afghanistan and Iraq of late, where we support the Army troops on the ground, and I got some pictures and some stuff I'll show you about that. We also do what's called aerospace control alert, where we have 2 fighters out there armed with missiles and bullets 24/7 with 2 pilots and 8 maintenance folks out there. In fact, I just got off alert yesterday morning. I sat on Saturday, and they're ready to go. So if somebody does a bomb threat on an airline or something like that, we would end up off their wing in the southeast part of the country. We actually intercepted a jet, I can't remember which airline it was, a month and a half or so ago, and followed them into Charlotte for one of those kind of instances. Also, people getting lost in civilian airplanes, we'll go out and try to guide them into a base to land at. Okay, next slide. So our history, we've been around for about 67 years. We're kind of proud of the fact that we're single-seat, single-engine fighters. It's kind of a mentality where when you only got one engine, you've got to get it right. So the maintainers are really good at what they do out there. And like I said, since the P-51 days right after World War II, our first drill was 9 December 46 out at Congaree Air Base. In the beginning, we flew kind of recce airplanes. You can see the airplanes there. And then in the mid-50s or so, we got into air defense and flew F-86s, F-102s, and 104 Starfighters. You can see the date up there. In 25 May of '61, Barney McIntyre, I don't know if anyone knew him or not, but he was loved out at McIntyre. He lost his single engine up in Pennsylvania and guided the airplane away from a populated area and wasn't able to get out in time. And about a week later, they renamed our base McIntyre Joint National Guard Base. After the air defense era, we got into bombing. The mighty A-7 and then the F-16A model. The Swamp Fox were pretty good at that. They won Gunsmoke, got invited to Desert Storm. And then back in '93, our distinguished senators, with their influence up there, got us the latest Block 50s, which is the latest airplane I'll talk about in a second, the CJ, and for about the last 20 years, we've been flying that out of McIntyre. The aircraft, it's got all the latest toys. Like I said, there are different blocks of airplanes, and the Block 52 is a Pratt & Whitney engine with the only difference between a Block 50 and a Block 52 is the engine. The avionics are all the latest and greatest avionics. So they have if you can see on the airplane up there, on the right-hand side is what's called a harm targeting system. It's an HS pod. It's basically a radar warning receiver that they talk to each other between the airplanes, and they can precision locate when a radar comes on for a very short period of time. So we can precision locate it basically to about a quarter the size of this room in a very short period of time, and then we can put a bomb on it or shoot a missile at it. We have the latest and greatest targeting pod, which is it's called Sniper Pod, but those are the things you used to see on TV where you guide the laser-guided bombs in. So we have that. We have a Link 16, which is basically all the airplanes talk to each other now, and we can see everyone else on the friendly side on our displays, and everyone else can see us, which is a good thing, because the other guys we shoot down. We have a helmet-mounted queuing system, which I brought in today. This thing is worth $250,000, and each pilot has one. I would take the time to put it on, but it'll take too long. But basically, it puts all the heads-up display and aiming stuff on this visor in front of your face, and it slews all those sensors so you can kind of look around. And if I can see a bad guy, I can basically kill him. So we have missiles that can see all over the place, and we can see stuff on the ground and point our sensors at it. So it makes it very quick to be able to kill the bad guys. Also, we have the lowest amount of time of all the F-16s in the Air Force, because being in the Air National Guard, we're a lot older. We don't fly the airplanes as much. We also don't deploy as much, so we're only about halfway through the lifespan of the airplane, which is another good thing for the taxpayer, because we don't wear out the airplanes. Next slide. Since we're in the Guard, we have a kind of a state mission. If a hurricane happens or something like a earthquake or domestic response, all the folks, mostly it's an Army type thing. You saw during the ice storms, the Army National Guard kind of got out there and helped out with the assault around the state. For the Air Guard, we primarily manage all the airplanes coming in that would come to the rescue, and the airspace would be pretty chaotic. We have an air traffic control squadron that can basically set up a command and control with radar and bring in all the airplanes. All the states would come in and bring things in to try to help us out. We have to kind of organize that, so that's what the Air Guard would be doing. You can see the other stuff that we have up there. Next slide. And that's the 245th. So they were down in Haiti when the earthquake occurred down there, and set up that same kind of thing. They were in Bagram in 2002. Once we took over the country, we bombed everything, so we had to go in and set up a bare bones operation. And the South Carolina Air National Guard sent their air traffic control folks in to do that. Same thing in Baghdad in 2003. Next slide. We have an Eagle Vision. We have a kind of an unclassified download of satellite imagery. After Desert Storm, all the imagery was classified. And the biggest thing about this is we can get it from unclassified sources and get it to the first responders, within minutes, basically. So when there's floods or earthquakes, we download this imagery, and we can. It's not super secret or anything, so we can get it to the fire department, to the EMD, to all the folks that need to make decisions. So it's a good capability. It's right out there at McIntyre. Next slide. The other thing, the nice thing about owning that base out there, we don't have any golf courses or gas stations, or everything we have out there is geared towards our mission to fly F-16s or fly Apache attack the helicopters out there. So what we can do is we can turn off the lights, and we can let all these special forces folks, the Rangers and the Marines, come in and take over our base, which is a skill that they need to have, because when they go into foreign countries, that's what they're going to do. And if these guys want to take over your base, you're not going to be able to stop them. So they'll put these NVGs on, which I brought a pair here. They'll wear these NVGs that basically, if you were to look under them, you wouldn't be able to see anything going on because everyone's lights out. If you put your NVGs on, you'll see kind of what that background slide is, or you'll see a bunch of airplanes and people jumping out in parachutes. When they get on the ground, they'll get in their Humvees, and and with their guns, and they'll take over the key places of an airfield. So it's a skill set that they need to be able to practice on a regular airfield, and you can't really do that at like say Shaw Air Force Base or Charleston, because there's just too much infrastructure and they really can't control turning, can't control the people and then turning the stuff off. So we've done a lot of that out there, and that's a good capability that McIntyre has. Next slide. Some deployments I really want to talk to here is, after when 9/11 hit, everyone wanted to go to war. We wanted to go and serve our country. And we were lucky enough to get called about 2 months after 9/11 to go to Afghanistan. Now, we didn't own Afghanistan at the time, right? So now we do, and we actually deploy over there and land on their airfields. But at the time, we had to go to Qatar, and we flew about 2.5 months after 9/11. We're dropping bombs on the caves over there, turning big rocks into little rocks, but basically taking the fight to the enemy. So South Carolina did that, which was fairly significant. About a year later, in 2003, when our president decided to do that in Iraq, we went in with all of our airplanes, and we're in the opening days of the Iraq war over there with about 300 folks and 15 airplanes. Again, out of Qatar. Flew up the coast into Iraq, dropped bombs, and did all those mission sets that I talked about. We went for a while without, did different deployments over to the Middle East, and then recently in 2010, we went over to Balad. There we landed in Iraq because we owned the airfields at that time, and they flew for about 4 months over there with about almost 12 F-16s. And there was no bomb dropping there because we were pulling out of Iraq at that time. So we were the first ones in to take over Iraq in 2003, Desert Storm, obviously back in the early days, and then we actually escorted or overwatched the folks as they pulled out back there in 2010. So we saw it from the beginning to the very end. It's kind of interesting. No bomb dropping, which was good. The Army didn't need our help at that time, and then we came home. And about 2 years later, just back in the summer of 12, we got back from Afghanistan. Obviously, that's still a hot fight over there, and the Army needed a lot of support over there. We're doing our close air support mission, and I'll show you a couple of slides on that here in a second. And then right now, we have 317 folks and 12 jets over in the Middle East doing various things over there, ready to respond if things go south. But they're coming home mid-April, and we're going to have a big welcome home kind of party for them in May. Okay, next slide. So, everyone remembers those days. It was pretty exciting. Next slide. There's where we went. There was nothing set up over there. The Army and the Air Force came in and we set up a bunch of tents and basically lived in the desert and went into Afghanistan and employed up there. So we did make the best of it. Next slide. Actually, I think this is when it rained. It was kind of bad. I got a few pictures here that are just interesting to look at. Next slide. So everyone kind of took the creature comforts and made it the best they could. Basically had about 8 to 10 to 12 folks in a tent for 4 months. Next slide. These are a few of our pilots trying to teach each other how to play golf in their little green up there. So they were doing that. And then next slide. That effort over there was, we integrated in with obviously the entire Air Force, so you can see all the different airplanes that were in there. It was a huge effort back there in 2002 and 2003, and your swamp fires were part of that. It was a significant thing. Not every Guard unit got to go, not even every active duty Air Force unit got to go, and we were on the leading edge of that. So South Carolina has as Jack talked about there, has a very good reputation in the Air Force and actually around the world now. So, next slide. Our squadron commander, top of our ops building, flying our flag. Okay, next slide. The recent deployment we just came back from was Afghanistan. You can see we flew all those stories over 10,000 hours worth of flying. And normally in a year, we only fly about 4,500 hours. We took half our airplanes, went over for 4 months, and flew 2.5 times the number of stories we fly in a year. So that's the reason that we need all the people that we have out there. We don't need them back home all the time, so we can kind of send them back to you guys to work in their businesses at home. Fire department, we have police officers, we have airline pilots. They're all out doing things in the community. And then when we need to go to combat, we spin them up and fly a 24-hour operation we can go forever, basically. So it's a great economical capability to have for the defense of our nation. So one of the things I wanted to hint at is that Jack flew the B-52. Back in World War II, we only dropped 207 bombs in 4 months. You say, wow, that's not very much, but one run of B-52, or not B-52s, but one run of bombers in World War II dropped that many bombs just in one run. Nowadays we have all these, our bombs are guided by satellites and by lasers, and we have guys on the ground that have eyes on with the enemy, and we precision locate to the size of that table right there and spend a long time orbiting overhead following very intense rules of engagement so that we don't put the bomb, over in that room over there and kill a bunch of people in a market or something like that. So it's a lot of stress on the pilots, and we went over there for that 4 months. There wasn't anything in the news about anything bad that happened with the Swamp Fox because they followed all the rules of engagement to the T. They were very professional and got the mission done, and all 207 of those bombs did some good damage on the enemy. The Army's engaged on the ground. The Army's engaged on the ground over there, and they get into firefights, and maybe they hit a bee's nest that they didn't mean to hit. They try to obviously dominate the enemy, and sometimes it doesn't quite happen. So, they'll make an emergency call in the air. They'll call it like troops in contact, and basically the F-16 can pretty much get anywhere in that country in about 7 minutes. So right now there are bombs in the air over Afghanistan 24/7, 365 days a year. So it's either an F-16, a B-1, could be a drone. It doesn't. There's airplanes airborne pretty much all the time. They're starting to back that down a tad bit, but when we were over there, we were just part of that. So it's a pretty incredible capability that your and my U.S. Air Force has. So again, we were right in the middle of that as Swamp Fox. So the guys did a really good job on that. And okay, I have some pictures just from our Afghanistan deployment. We'll kind of spin through here. Some interesting pictures. There's one of our lethal fighter pilots at the top right there, Cletus Bridgers. He's a 4,000-hour F-16 pilot, and we have about 4 of them out there, and we average about 1,800 hours in the F-16 in our unit. The average active duty squadron probably averages about 500 or 600 hours. And the reason for that is because we don't move from base to base and do different assignments. The active duty has to cover that, which is important. So, I spent 14 years in the active duty flying the F-16, and then came to the Guard in '98, and I've been flying the F-16 for 29 years straight. So, so you do get kind of good at it after a while, which is important. Again, you don't need to fly. So I don't need to fly as much, and all of our Guard guys don't need to fly as much as the active duty guys. So it ends up, less wear and tear on the airplanes, and we can have some part-timers that don't have to be out there all the time, and it really is a very cost-effective way to set up the defense of our country. And then one of our sharp crew chiefs down there on the lower left, our flag flying over the squadron ops there on the bottom right. Next slide. A few more pictures. That's the bomb I was talking about on the bottom right. It's got a GPS kit on the back and some fins that guide it, and the thing on the front is a radar sensing fuse that basically we can program it from the cockpit and set it to blow up at different heights to get more effect on the enemy. Some of the pilots doing their pre-flight. I think it was a Mother's Day picture. They took a bunch of those pictures around out there and sent them back. Next slide. So, that's out on the front, on the line up there. These are the guys back doing all the work, loading the airplanes up. The bottom right's our 20mm gun that they load up. It's got 510 rounds of pretty lethal capabilities. It's 510 rounds you shoot in 6 seconds, so 1,000 rounds a minute. So it's not as lethal as the A-10, but the reason we're getting rid of the A-10 is because it only does one mission. So the F-16 can do a bunch of, it's a multi-role fighter. And then the bombs on the top left are, again, we flew with 2 of them on each side, so different variations and configurations. Those are our hard-working maintainers. That's about 45% of our folks that are out there at the base. Next slide. There's a fully loaded airplane at night. Next slide. So Toby Keith came out there to entertain the troops. That was pretty cool. And you can see they try to keep the morale up over there. You know, it's really important to, when the deployments are long, to stay connected back home. You know, they've got Wi-Fi now, Skype, they talk to their family, it's great. But to know that our community still supports what they're doing over there is very, very important. And we are going to have some media out when the folks come back in mid-April, because I think it's important for the folks to understand what they've been doing. And this is a great opportunity for me to be able to try to tell you a little bit about what the Swamp Fox have been doing over the years, because you guys are taxpayers. You own the Swamp Fox, you know. So this is your guard unit, the state of South Carolina. So it's really important for you guys to understand that, and it's important to us. So that I don't know how many times I go around town and people, you know, thank me for my service. It's awesome. Next slide. So yeah, it was a little bit better in Afghanistan in 2012 than what we had way back when. So they got a little KFC over there now in the little field they built in the desert. So next slide. You can see Kandahar Airfield is where we were at. Sending pictures home. I mean, we get pictures home all the time now. We even have a Facebook page. Now, if you Google it, you can probably find it. There's all kinds of great pictures on there, and a Flickr page that they put pictures on. So depending on the deployment, you know, some things we can put on there, some things we can't, but there's lots of cool pictures up there. Next slide. This is a welcome home from 2012. This is what we're going to do here in mid-April. And basically, it's really neat when everyone comes home. You know, I was there when the folks left, you know, the families. Some of them are first-time deployers. You know, they're very nervous, and you know, they don't know what to expect. It's good that we have the older guys that go with them, and everyone is doing really well over there. But it's a significant emotional event, you know, when your loved one leaves, and it's a significant emotional event, as you can see when they come home. So what I do want to say is that you all are more than welcome to come out to McIntyre, and I've got some business cards out here. They're all coming home right now, starting around 9 April. The airplanes are coming home around 13 April, but I can get you the info if anyone's interested in coming out. And then on 3 May, it's a weekend, it's our drill weekend. Steve is graciously helping me to set this up, like I said earlier, to try to garner some sponsors for the event. You know, we're very restricted in the military and the DoD of what we can spend our money on, and you know, they don't let us spend our money on necessarily. We're actually going to have a band camps coming out, and we're going to get some things for the families, you know, the bouncy ball things for the kids, and you know, different things like that. So, and we're going to kind of get some food out there for them and stuff. So Steve's probably going to contact some of y'all, but we're you know, we don't need a whole lot of money, but we're actually going to try to get the community involved with that and sponsor it. And again, folks are welcome to come out to that. It's great when civilian folks come out there and pat those guys on the back. They just love that. Next slide. I think that's it. So I needed to save some time for questions. I think I hit it there.
What the range is for the plane?
The range? You know, it goes about, I mean, it depends how you use the gas. So if I'm just cruising to go somewhere to visit or to move the airplane, it's about 1,200 miles. If I got to go fight somewhere, it's generally about a 500-mile radius. I can go somewhere maybe 400, 500 miles. I can fight for about 20 minutes, and then I can come home. You know, we have the Air Force, U.S. Air Force has tankers, which is an incredible capability. So some of the missions I flew in OIF were 9.5 hours long. So Of course, if you drop your bombs, then you come home, but it takes a while sometimes to get it set up right to drop the bomb. So refueled, you can fly forever. The longest mission I ever flew was flying from Hawaii to Japan. I had to go around a typhoon, and it was 11.4 hours. Sitting in that chair right there, not getting up you saw the cockpit for 11.4 hours. Go ahead.
Colonel Manning, you have to be a South Carolinian with that name, South Carolina. As a former Air Force pilot, I probably follow what's happening to the Air Force more than most people do. I'm very concerned now about what I see coming from the administration as far as the Air Force budget and what they're cutting out and eliminating. Things like benefits, just basic things that the Air Force has always enjoyed. And I think back to the 80s with President Reagan and what happened there when he strengthened the military. And now we seem to be at a very crucial time diminishing the military. Could, as far as you're able, without getting into difficulty, that, please?
Well, all that's above my pay grade. So, my mission is, as Jack pointed out in the beginning, is to basically take 1,400 folks and go out and kill people. So I focus on that. But I read the same things you're reading, and I have opinions on it. I joined the Air Force 2 weeks after high school when I went to the Air Force Academy, and I'm about to retire in about 6 weeks. So 34 years in the Air Force, and I've seen the change over time. And it's all about getting quality people. I probably, when I got out of the active duty Air Force at 14 years, I was really going to stay out. I was going to go be an airline pilot and, kind of just stay out of the Air Force. But the benefits, some of the benefits they offered kind of convinced me to stay in. So it's all about supply and demand, and I think the Air Force is taking a business approach to that. The Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Mark Welsh, great American. And I trust that he is making the right decisions for the Air Force. Now, he's a little frustrated by some of the things that are being put on him. He doesn't want to retire the A-10, for instance, but he is making smart decisions with the money that he's given. So, yeah, as far as the DoD stuff and all the benefits, we could probably have a few beers and talk a lot about that later. But it is about keeping quality people. So I committed my entire life to the Air Force because of what they offered. But most of the folks that are out at McIntyre and in the military do it for more than just the money. The quality of people that you get to hang out with is just phenomenal. So that's probably the important thing. Can we be a little more economical, maybe rely on the Guard a little bit more and all that? Yeah, I think we can. And we're kind of squeezing the Air Force to look at that, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, the benefits part of that is we have to be careful about that in the future. Sir?
Colonel, give you a chance to talk a little bit about your guys. Isn't it true that the Swamp Foxes are considered to be the best at enemy air suppression in the world? Active duty, Guard, hands down. And then I know a guy, a good friend of mine, was actually an F-15 driver, and they used to drill against Guard units a lot, and he said, oh, it was a piece of cake unless you're against the Swamp Foxes in their Block 52s, and he said, because we can shoot them down before they even know we're there, but if they can sneak up on us and we don't see them, we're toast every time. He said, you never want to get in a dogfight with those guys. So is it true that you guys are that way, and have you been really stretched with your ops tempo? I know things have slowed down lately with us pulling out of country, but prior to that, weren't you all leaned on very, very heavily and spent a lot of your guys were spending a whole lot of time deployed versus most Guard units and even active duty units?
Well, like I said, we did do a lot of deployments, and when they're combat deployments, we raise our hand. We want to go. Every single guy out there wants to go and go. It's the folks want to serve their country. So it looks like maybe we have a high ops tempo, but we like it. So it's not that bad. Now, if they were to go send us in, to different stuff that was, which sometimes active the Air Force does, we might complain about that. But yeah, no, we've been to combat deployments and it's been great. The other part you had, the first part about the reputation of the Swamp Fox. So I'll tell you a little story. I was going to hit it, but I wanted to get done in time to ask questions. But There's a bomb competition over in Jordan back in '06. It had been going on for a while, and it was F-16 bomb competition. And the active duty Air Force had been going over there, and we kept getting beat. And General Petraeus was tired of that. He was the CENTCOM commander at the time. So he called General North, Gary North. I'm sure you know him, sir. But he was the ASCENT commander at the time, the commander of all the U.S. Air Forces over in that region. And General Petraeus said, send me a unit that can come over here and win this competition. So he called the Swamp Fox. He called our wing commander at the time. We had about 2.5 months to prep for it. We flew over there, and there were 6 competitions, and we won 5 out of the 6. The one that we couldn't win was the arrival show because we have these rules we have to follow, and we couldn't fly 100 feet over the crowd, so the Jordanians could, so they won that one. But we won. It was a maintenance competition, pilot competition. It was amazing, and the guys did great. And so, things like that. We get inspected the same way as any other active duty unit, and we for some reason we do really well on that stuff. I think it's an attitude that's out there, and it carries on from person to person, and everyone wants to be the best of the best. And Semper Primus is our motto, always first. So we, like I said, we stand up, we volunteer for everything, and we dig into what we need to do well at, and it works. So.
Could you comment on the status of the F-35?
We didn't get the first one, so I'm kind of bummed out about that. But it's going to Vermont. Can you believe that? Vermont. I mean, I grew up in the Northeast, and the people around Vermont, they don't want it. But there's political reasons why it went up there, and it's fine. There's the first F-35 that comes out. Well, first off, we're designed to go in against a contested environment and fight our way in and fight our way out, and kill the bad guys. So we're a 4th generation fighter. Well, they're making some pretty good stuff out there that can shoot us down. There are some environments we cannot survive in. SA-10s, SA-12s, some of these double-digit SAMs, we call them, the advanced SAMs, we can't survive in those. So there's also some airplanes out there that can shoot us down that we can't see. We can't even see them on our radar, and they can see us before they. So we would do okay, but that if we fought the Russians over there, they have some pretty good fighters. The Aviano F-16s are over there right now, over in Poland. They're going to take some losses. So now, if it really goes into a combat situation, they'll probably send some F-22s over. But the F-35 it's a flying sponge, and you can't see it. So it's soaking up everything that's looking at it, whether it's a heat thing coming at it, or a radar or a electron coming at it. I mean, it knows instantly what's looking at it. And it has situational awareness. It has everything's fed into the airplane, and then no one can see the airplane, so their radars can't see that. So the ability to go in a contested environment is really important. So the Air Force is committed to buying 768 of those things, I think, and I think it's a good decision.
Yes, sir. More questions?
It may sound like a trivial thing, but one of the things I look forward to every year is the salute to the veterans at Carolina for the football games, and we have the flyovers, and everybody looks forward to precision flying that's done there. Do y'all have a special process that determines who gets to do that? Is that an honor to do that? Is that something that they kind of compete for, or is it just whoever's on call that day?
Usually, like if you're a Carolina grad or something, usually try to get in there. Or if you're the wing commander, you get to lead it. I got to lead the one the year before last. So actually, no, I led the one 3 years ago, and then the one 2 years ago, we had I think it was during the Wofford game, so we had a Wofford grad, Lee Mears, you might know him. So he got to lead that one. But it's basically if you're kind of graduated from the school or something like that, it's kind of thing. I mean, it's usually on a weekend, so we don't have a whole lot of volunteers. But the reason we didn't do it this past year was sequestration. The Air Force just shut down all those options. Think of the press if you're out there flying, guys like Steve Mungo or doing flybys and stuff like that, and yet we're laying off, technicians and, parking airplanes, things like that. The message doesn't jive. So So rightly so, the Air Force shut us down. They're starting to get back into that. I was hoping we could get it for this past fall, but it didn't work. And hopefully this coming fall, we'll be over the Carolina game again. It does take away from our training a little bit. So we only do two or three flybys a year. We do the Military Appreciation Day at Carolina, and we try to support the Clemson one, and occasionally something at Citadel. But we generally don't do the other stuff around the state, in general. So mostly because of money.
Impressed with your timing. Y'all always seem to hit it just the right time. That's great.
It is a challenge.
Y'all hang tight for just a minute. The Colonel has a presentation for us.
Yeah, this is a litho of our F-16. A bunch of the pilots signed it, and I wanted to present. I don't know if you guys have a place you could hang it or something like that, but for one of y'all's businesses or something like that. But it's got the date, today's date, and Columbia Rotary Club on the bottom. So for you guys.
Unless there's an objection, we'd like that to go to Jack Van Loon in honor of his service. Colonel, we're very grateful you're here and very proud of you as well. Yes, Jack.
Let me make one unsolicited remark. For 4 years, I got to be the Director of Operations for 9th Air Force, which stretches from the Mississippi River to the East Coast. As such, I had operational control of all the fighter reconnaissance aircraft in the Air Force, to include the Guard, okay? He happens to be the commander of the best Guard outfit in America. That's why they're training active duty people out there. There are no other Guard units that are training active duty people except his outfit. I commend you, I really do. Thank you.
I was going to ask Michael Kahn to stand up. Everybody stand up. If y'all would look over here at Michael. Anybody that would shave their head for a cause, such as I think cancer or something that you're doing, Michael, deserves to be pointed out. Now, you look great without hair, but you have such a nice head of hair anyway. So. Yeah, okay. Well, Glenn says it must be so. All right. Jim, we're going to do is going to sing something. My country 'tis of thee, and then we'll be dismissed.
Have a good week.